Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where this week I have finally been daily driving an Ineos Grenadier. And I say finally because this car has been quite elusive. I think we've had this on our schedule 4 or 5 separate times, and for some reason it always gets canceled right before we take delivery and spend our week with it. But this brand new 2026 model did actually show up this week, and today we're going to show you what it's like to live with, and I'm very excited because I have seriously been looking forward to it. Now, some of you may be wondering, what is this thing? Everyone I told this week what I was driving had no idea what I was on about, and that's understandable because Ineos is not a car company per se, they're a chemical company, and this car is the brainchild of the CEO of Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who was disappointed in 2017 when Land Rover killed the OG Land Rover Defender. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, of course, being an Englishman, Ineos being a British company. The Land Rover Defender was built over in England for much longer than it was sold over here in the US. So the Land Rover Defender that you and I know was not necessarily the Land Rover Defender that they knew over in the UK. And well, Sir Ratcliffe wanted to fill the gap in the market, and being the billionaire that he was and still is, decided to just make his own car. So this is it. It's the Grenadier, and this one is the Fieldmaster trim, a 2026 model. Fieldmaster being the more road-going variant of the Grenadier, which is made to be an off-road oriented car. So this is kind of the on-roadiest version of the off-roadiest car that I think you can buy in the 2026 model year. Now this, I don't want to say it competes, but it's kind of in the same genre of cheaper options like the Jeep Wrangler and the Ford Bronco, and more expensive options like the Land Rover Defender and the Mercedes G-Wagon. So this sits right about in the middle. Base price on this Fieldmaster is right around 80 grand as spec'd today. This one is $92,000, and we will have that entire spec in the description for you. But outside of its very Land Rover Defender-y appearance, it's got a lot of tech underneath, lots of things going on, but not lots of screenified things in the interior, which is a big reason why I love this so much. Now, under the hood, some of you may know, is the B58 turbocharged 3-liter inline-6 from BMW, though unlike its form in something like an M340i, this doesn't make close to 400 horsepower. This is detuned for reliability. So in the Grenadier, it makes 282 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. Now this is still linked to the ZF or ZF, whatever you want to call it, 8-speed automatic transmission, and obviously this is 4-wheel drive. This particular one is finished in Britannia Blue with a Scottish white roof, and there's lots of fun things with this as far as spec goes. You can just about tailor make everything with this. There's tons of accessories you can put on, and this is a pretty modest spec, being only 92 grand. But one of the coolest things you could do is pick the color of your frame. This one has a gray frame, which I know doesn't seem super exciting, but usually they're just black, and it's not really something we consider speccing. The wildest color you can do is red, which I haven't actually seen one in person, but I imagine a red frame would just look wild. But hey, when you're a billionaire making your own sort of car company, why not make things configurable like this? Why not let people have a red frame? And that's what I love so much about the Ineos Grenadier. So why don't we poke around this thing? We'll talk about it a bit more, and then we're going to show you what it's like to live with on the road. We're not going to do any off-roading with this, but I think that's an important aspect of this car, because how many people that buy a G-Wagon, a Land Rover Defender, are actually taking it off-road? I'm sure some of them do, but for the most part, they're just sort of driving it around in a daily driver fashion. And I think the aesthetic of this car has just as much value as its off-road potential. So today, we're going to see what it's like to live with. And we'll start in the back, which has a very cool split folding tailgate. And this one has the optional lockbox on the back that fits inside the spare wheel. So kind of using some room that's normally unused in other vehicles, other competitor vehicles. But this is not split 50-50. This opens, I don't know, what would you call this, like 2080? You've got this little chute over here on the left-hand side, and then this whole bit opens up on the right. And this is a massive opening. And as standard, Grenadiers don't come with carpets because you're supposed to be able to just hose them out, but you've just got so much room back here. The roofline is super high, though whoever had this last did still manage to put something in here that was so tall that it got the headliner dirty. So this has just come back from Moab, I believe, so it's got some sand and things on it still. They have been using these cars, Ineos corporate, for certain events and things. Little cubby right there for whatever. But yeah, obviously load surface is pretty high because this is a vehicle that sits quite high up, but you could put your dogs in here and not worry about them getting things dirty because, again, you just hose this thing out and it's good as new. This particular Fieldmaster has the optional rough pack, they call it, which means it has locking front and rear differentials and an upgraded BF Goodrich tire. The spare on the back reminded me of this. It's a KO2, and this is, of course, a squared setup in a 255/70R18. Now, the Fieldmaster trim, as it is the more road-going version, get you these fancy alloy wheels. There are so many variants of this. In fact, Ineos will even sell you a truck version. So it's the same until the rear door, but then it has a truck bed. So just all sorts of choices here with the Grenadier. I love the doors because they remind me of a G-Wagon. I don't think the door handles are quite as satisfying as a G-Wagon, but they're part of the way there. And since this thing's 90 grand, which is I think less than half the price of the last G63 that I drove, I won't complain about those, and I wouldn't complain anyway because I love the way that they feel. Optional steps on this, and that brings us actually to one of the few things I actually don't like about the Grenadier, and that is that there's no handle to pull yourself up into this very high up SUV. So you kind of just have to hope you have some leg strength, hope you didn't do leg day the day before, to jump into the back of this, where we sit upon the Recaro seats for the first time. I love that even the back seats are branded as Recaros. Of course, the fronts are as well. This one has the gray and black seats, which is one of two choices you can get. You can have solid black or gray and black. Being that this is the Fieldmaster, you do get leather seats as standard that are heated in the front. The base model gets cloth seats, so this one's a bit more luxurious. Base model Grenadier starts at about 70 grand, so this is quite a bit more expensive than that, but you do get a good amount of kit here on the Fieldmaster, including the smooth pack, which you can have simultaneously with the rough pack. This is going to be a long video, I can already tell. Room in the back is good. Sat behind myself in this very echoey cabin, as you can hear. At 5'11", I've got plenty of room. Plenty of headroom, obviously, plenty of leg room, and I love the height of these door panels. You can kind of just rest your arms on here, whether you're in the back or the front. No standalone climate panel, but you do get some vents back here and a couple of USB-C ports. And again, like I said, if we lift up this carpeted floor mat, you can see it's just a rubber floor under here, so it's very easy to clean out after you've done some off-roading. We'll quickly show you this B58 under the hood, which has the BMW style double pull hood latch as well. And we'll open this up to reveal that we don't have hood struts. This actually might be the most expensive car I've driven that doesn't have hood struts. But I don't know, can we forgive it because it's so specially made? Ineos's big thing is kind of reducing the number of replacement parts that you have to put on this over the lifetime of the vehicle. And hood struts are a wear item. So having it like this just means it'll never break and you'll always be able to open the hood. When you're out on the trail and your hood struts fail and you don't have a hood prop, then that would be sort of an issue. So I guess we'll give them a pass on this. But you can see they definitely don't hide the fact that this is powered by BMW because it literally says on the engine cover, powered by BMW, but we have the Ineos badge, the Grenadier badge right there on that cover, and this is unmistakably a BMW B58, though much dirtier than I'm used to. You can definitely tell this has been to the desert. Very cool to see. But this fits in here no problem, obviously. They had a lot of choices of powertrain, but I guess this was kind of their first choice, the BMW B58. And I don't blame them, because this engine's in everything. It's pretty proven. I mean, it's in everything from the Toyota Supra to the BMW X7. Lots of different configurations here for the B58. Opening up this front door, you can see materials are pretty nice. Obviously, you've got this scratchy plastic, which is just meant to be able to be hosed off and things. But then on top, you've got nice leather up here, leather on the midsection of the door panel, and then your contrast leather that matches the middle of these beautiful Recaro seats. Now, again, these are fully manual. You've got no power adjustment whatsoever on the steering wheel or the seat. So one less thing to break. And also, okay, here's the reasoning for this as I jump in. Again, no handle for the driver either. The only person that gets a handle to get in is the front seat passenger. So we know Ineos know how to make a handle, but they don't put them anywhere else. Maybe they have some sort of off-roading reasoning for that too. But the big reason for minimal electronics is that everything under this piece of black trim here is waterproof. I don't know, should I say waterproof or water resistant? All of these switches here, this whole switch panel, have gaskets, which means that you can wade this thing halfway up the doors. This can all get wet, and in theory, it should all still work. So the fact that this, these don't have seat motors, it doesn't have all sorts of power things everywhere, means that you can kind of just get this wet, hose it out, and then keep on going. So simplicity is kind of the key here with this, even though we do have quite a few buttons in here. You do kind of feel like you're in the cockpit of an airplane, especially when you look up. But let's go ahead and fire this thing up with a switchblade key. Man, I don't remember the last time I drove a car with a key, but man, I miss keys. So let's stick this into the ignition and fire up the Grenadier. Have to give them kudos for making their own chime, because sometimes when companies borrow engines and other bits from other manufacturers, they also take some of their technology. We do have the BMW iDrive, the old version that you would have found in a Supra or a BMW Z4, but it doesn't have the BMW chime. So, and I quite like the chime that Ineos have chosen. Down here, BMW shifter, that is easy to recognize. We've got the BMW iDrive controller right here. This does have wireless Apple CarPlay, so it does have a good amount of modern amenities as well. But I don't care about any of that. I just care about all of these beautiful button clicks. How about all of that? I've just been fiddling with things all week, and it's just been the best because nothing has buttons anymore. This is so much fun. I mentioned this has the rough pack, so we have the front and rear lockers up there. You can also option on a second row of auxiliary switches. This makes it so you can power the battery on even if the car is off. If you're running a campsite or something, you have accessories plugged into some of these ports. The car doesn't have to be running in order for you to power them. We also have these Safari windows. Look at that, those pop up to vent, or you can pull them all the way out with these two little tabs right here. Obviously, we're going to be keeping those installed today so you guys don't have to listen to wind noise. This one has the driver's package in saddle, which means we get this beautiful brown steering wheel, brown parking brake handle, which, yes, it's a proper mechanical parking brake. And even the passenger gets to play with the driver's pack with their little grab handle in saddle. But my goodness, is this a unique interior. We've got a 2-spoke steering wheel, which has 2 horn buttons. Obviously, they really go on this little toot button. They even put it in red. It's got the little bicycle on there. And the actual horn, quite loud. In fact, everyone in this industrial complex probably just heard that. But if you just want to do little beeps here and there, you've got the toot toot button, which I have been spamming all week. You've got a volume knob down here for our unbranded premium sound system, which we will be testing today, of course. 2 cup holders. We have a locking center console, which I quite like. You've got the couple extra little keys, one for the console, one for the little lockbox on the back in the spare tire. But I think we've been in this parking lot for too long already. Let's take this out on the road. We'll do our little performance loop like we normally do, and then we'll take this on the highway. We'll get it into town. We'll go to the grocery store, and then we'll get it into the city and see if the Ineos Grenadier Fieldmaster station wagon is a proper livable car as a daily driver. So let's put the parking brake down. We'll put our BMW shifter into reverse where, okay, this pulls up what is probably one of the worst quality backup cameras that I've seen. And honestly, it's kind of surprising for a car like this to not have a 360 camera as standard. or even at all. I didn't see one on the configurator. There may be one somewhere, but this is just a very low quality single camera for reverse. Now with the smooth pack, and this being the Fieldmaster, you do get park distance control. So you've got parking sensors in the front and the rear. But this thing's super easy to place because you can see both corners of the front with this seating position. One thing this doesn't do, like the G-Wagon, is make you jump when the central locking locks itself once you've taken off and hit 10 miles an hour or whatever. You do still hear them locking, but usually I like physically jump when I'm in a G-Wagon and I'm not expecting it. But okay, highest compliment that I have as far as driving this Grenadier goes is all of the calibration with this. Now obviously they had a leg up having this BMW B58 right off the bat, but it has its own unique tune, which means their engineers have had to mess with the throttle tuning, the gearbox tuning, the brakes, all of this stuff to make this a nice driving vehicle. And it is. My throttle response is extremely linear. Gearbox tuning is lovely as well. You do not feel the shifts from this 8-speed automatic. And I admire the fact that they've taken an engine that is sort of a performance-y thing, you know, pushing 400 horsepower in some of BMW's performance cars, and they've stuck it in this off-road oriented car that's really made to go off-road, but also it's so usable on the street. And it sounds good. You hear the turbo blow off between gears. I don't know if you guys can hear that with my audio or not, but it's so weird because you feel like you're sitting in an old Land Rover Defender that's been airplane cockpitized, but then you hear a BMW M340i. And that's why we love this so much, because it is such a unique experience. And don't think that they've made this sluggish. Just because it's detuned, just because it's off-road oriented, doesn't mean that this thing can't hustle around town. I mean, 282 horsepower, I think that's underrated, to be honest. I mean, the B58, pretty much no matter what sort of number you get from it, it's always going to be a bit less, and I think the case is the same here with this Grenadier station wagon. It just feels like it has more. Throttle response is just lovely. I mean, even you lift your foot off and it's a little bit snappy. Yeah. Right, okay, so number one thing that owners of early Grenadiers complained about, as we get a warning light, this will go away. Yep, there you go, went away. Number one thing that early Grenadier owners complained about was the steering. Now, this has a very sort of rudimentary recirculating ball steering, which means, well, I don't know entirely what that means, but I know that it's ideal for off-road and not ideal for on-road. But after we take this corner, we'll talk more. But for 2026, they've retuned this to make it more suitable for on-road. And having driven an older Ineos Grenadier very briefly at an event somewhere, which is why you guys didn't see a video on it. I wasn't able to live with it. I literally drove it for 15 minutes. This is much improved because, yes, you do have to do some adjustments going down the road, but the old version of the steering in this was constant adjustments. And this was a problem for a number of reasons. For one, the lane keep assist system in this, which you have to turn off every single time you get in, and it's in multiple menus, so I haven't done it today. But it's less of a problem now that you don't have to be doing as many adjustments. And also it kind of helps slot this in to that segment that we talked about earlier with the Wrangler, with the Bronco, with the G-Wagon, with the Land Rover Defender, because it feels less disconnected. You have, I think, more trade-offs in a Jeep Wrangler because you do sort of feel like you're in a Motel 6 when you drive one of those. Whereas the Grenadier, it's a bit more like the Marriott Bonvoy, you know? It's not the Ritz-Carlton, but hey, at least I don't have carpeted floors that are stinky. All right, let's get this off the line. We're gonna turn our auto stop start off, which of course is a physical button, and we'll just roll into it and see how it gets off the line. And there's 60 in what is supposedly about 7 seconds. I trust them. It feels about like that. Now, oftentimes you will have stability control sort of killing your fun around corners, but I don't think you need to be having fun around corners in an Ineos Grenadier station wagon when you're on the street, because it is quite tall. In fact, Ineos actually give you the dimensions of this here, and upon looking at this, you can't help but notice that it's about the same width as it is height, which means it's not going to be the most graceful around corners, but that's not the point of this thing, you know? This is made to go through puddles that are as tall as me. Maybe not quite as tall as me, that might actually flood it, but you guys know what I'm on about. You can get this with a snorkel though, if you get the Trialmaster, and then you could go even deeper because it means it can breathe on the roof. All right, well, let's talk about what this is like to sit in daily drive. My favorite part about this sitting in it is the seating position and the fact that I can rest my arm here on the door panel and rest my other arm on the locking center console and just feel like I'm in a James Bond film, you know? That's how you feel driving the Grenadier. And you can do your steering adjustments with one hand. It's not so all over the place that you need both hands on the wheel at all times. But I think just looking out over this dashboard is very cool as well. The only thing that I don't super love is the fact that everything's over here in this infotainment screen. You don't get a gauge cluster, which is fine because you do get all of your warning lights and things. Those do all exist here, but there's no head-up display. There's no standalone gauge cluster in the Ineos Grenadier. So it does feel a bit like an old Toyota Yaris in the way that you have to sort of look to the middle for everything, or a Tesla, I suppose. So I don't know, maybe give me a head-up display or something. I could see my speed without having to look over. But also, pretty minimal complaint because I do like the design of everything otherwise. Now, obviously when you're on the highway, you can still hear the toot-toot horn, but you can't really hear much else because the wind noise is pretty shocking in this. So you've got some NVH going on here on the highway. Now the premium sound system in this, it does get quite loud, so you are able to tone some of this out if you desire. But I think there's a lot of things kind of working against this as far as NVH go. You've got the Safari windows up here. That's one more seal and thing that you have to get around. The windshield being directly straight up and down, obviously that doesn't help. And then the fact that we're on the KO2, you know, it's a lot of things that work against this being quiet. Now, this is not a car you look at and assume is going to be quiet on the highway. And I really don't even think it's a point against this, you know, the fact that it's loud on the highway. But let's go ahead and use the cruise control, which is very easy to use. It's physical buttons here on the left-hand side of the wheel. Now, this doesn't have any sort of fancy cruise control. It's very sort of traditional. There's no adaptive cruise. You do have lane keep assist, which is, I think, the most terrifying version of lane keep assist I've ever experienced in my life, because since this has the recirculating ball steering, it's a very unique thing to this car in 2026. There's no sort of electronic intervenement that can happen to the steering, which means when it senses you're out of a lane, it brakes one of the rear wheels, which is extremely unsettling. I've had it happen a couple of times to me, and it usually only happens when the car gets very confused. If you're at some sort of interchange where one lane becomes two, it thinks you're going out of a lane, and it brakes one of the rear wheels. Which immediately makes the car unsettled, and it makes it feel like you're going to loop the entire thing. Okay, it might not be that dramatic, but it makes you clench. And luckily you can turn this off, but like I said, you have to turn it off every time you get in the car. And it's a few menus deep in this infotainment, so I wish there was some sort of physical button in here where you could just defeat this lane keep assist. Passing power here is good, and confidence on the highway with this retuned steering is quite good as well. I mean, I definitely feel more confident in this than I do in a Jeep Wrangler. Visibility out of the Grenadier is good for the most part. Side view mirrors do a good job. They're nice and sort of tall and skinny like the rest of the car. Obviously, forward visibility is good. You can see the hood, you can see the corners of the fenders. The windshield is flat right in front of you, very easy to see. However, seeing out of the back is just about impossible because due to the nature of the split opening tailgate and the massive spare wheel, it means that you kind of just can't see out the back. I think this would be a very good candidate for a camera rear view mirror. Brakes feel really good. You've got a little bit of nosedive there with the suspension, of course, because it is a pretty soft feel. This doesn't have any drive modes or adaptive dampers or anything, so you can't adjust any of this, but I think they've chosen a very good damper setting to have as standard. Quite the trio of countries here involved in making this car, obviously Ineos being a British company, but then the engine, gearbox, and some of the other things are German because they're from BMW, and then they build it in France. So when they were sort of bringing this all together in the late 2010s, early 2020s, Mercedes was looking to ditch their factory that they built smart cars in. So it sort of was like a perfect little thing there. Ineos was able to purchase that from Mercedes-Benz. Should we do our bridge test and see what we have as far as sound? Now, we don't have paddle shifters, and this actually doesn't even have the little S mode that the shifter suggests. When you bump it over, it does just put it into manual. But since this is a BMW shifter, it does go in the correct direction. Kind of just boost noises here from the B58. But I'll tell you what, even though this exhaust isn't super raunchy, it is unmistakably BMW because I cold started this morning and it sounded like I had an M340i idling in the driveway, and I'll insert a clip of that right now. So there are some aspects of the BMW-ness that you just can't escape, and I think that's pretty cool to have that character, that heart and soul here in the Grenadier. And then there's the name. Grenadier is named after Sir Ratcliffe's favorite pub in the UK, which I think now he owns, where some of the early talks and design of the Grenadier actually happened. In fact, they sketched out the final design for this on the back of a £5 note, and that very note still hangs tacked to the ceiling in that pub in England. So there's lots of cool lore with this car. You guys know that I love lore. But okay, anyway, lore aside, what's it like to actually drive around? Well, with this being body on frame, you're always going to have a little bit of unsettledness over bumps. But I'll tell you what, this is one of the nicest riding body on frame vehicles that I've ever driven. And I think the tire on this with the big sidewall definitely helps. But the way that they've managed to make this very off-road oriented car ride so nicely on road is a testament to the team of engineers that very freshly designed and built this car, because this is a less than 10-year-old concept and they've already got it so well dialed in. Let's pull this in here and let's talk more about this steering. Now, the actual weight of the steering, it's weird. It's quite medium in some cases, but when you're turning it at low speeds, it's very heavy. Now, when you're backing out of the driveway in the morning, you do have to sort of account for a couple of extra steers. It's not the fastest steering rack in the world, and we'll demonstrate this parking it in this front spot right here. Why not? I don't think we're going to make it, though, because the turning circle is not the best. Oh, maybe we are going to make it. Okay, let's get this in here. Also going to try and use this mirror. Luckily, the car's not very wide, so you are able to fit it in spots that, I don't know, maybe a Land Rover Defender would be a bit too wide for, or a Bronco Sasquatch like this one right here. But the steering, you do have to manhandle it a little bit, like I just did at low speeds. At high speeds, it does lighten up some, so it does feel more normal when you're just driving it around regular places. I I love the parking brake. That's a really cool feel. But anyway, once you've got it into a spot, we can take the key out of the ignition. We can fold this back into its little spot. And I am actually going to be using this lockbox for when I take my camera off and go into the store to grocery shop. So that's a feature that I always like in any car. You know, having a locking glove box or a locking center console, anything like that is always good. And as we can see here, this fits into this spot with no problem. We are hugging the curb a bit, but we've got quite a lot of room over here. And then lengthwise, it fits in here perfectly fine as well. I think height is kind of the only place where you're going to be limited with this. If you are going somewhere where parking structure is your only choice, you may want to do some Googling ahead and make sure that you do have the height to clear it. But anyway, let's go ahead and we'll go into the grocery store. We'll come back out and then we will wrap this one up on our way into town. Walking back up to the Ineos Grenadier station wagon, I hate to feel inclined to say obviously, but obviously we don't have proxy key with this. In fact, the Mercedes G-Wagon just got proxy key for the first time ever, like 2 years ago. So you have to pull out your key fob and click the unlock button to allow yourself access. I meant to show you guys this earlier. When you lock it, it plays the little toot from the toot toot button on the horn. But anyway, we're not going to bother with the trunk. We're just going to throw this bag here in the back seat where it has a very nice little spot there. And we'll jump back into the front. I have to get used to not putting the key in my pocket because I'm obviously very trained to do that with all of the push button start cars that we drive. Also, it's pretty quiet in here. Take a listen. Headphone users obviously will be able to experience that a bit more, but a pretty well insulated cabin here. Only thing I'll say with this steering that I don't super love is that it doesn't seem too keen to return to center. So you do find yourself having to kind of get it back straight when you turn out of a parking lot or something like that. But anyway, let's give you a demo here on this sound system. Got a volume knob down here, or you've got volume adjust buttons on the steering wheel. And this is so funny, it only has about 12 levels of volume. You can see level 7, level 8, level 9. So here's what I think about this sound system. Do I think it's industry leading? Absolutely not. Do I think it's okay for a first-time car company putting this in an off-road oriented car that's not really about sound systems? Yes. It kind of reminds me of an Alpine system in a Jeep Wrangler. It's very loud, it's very powerful, but it's a little flat, it's not very crispy, and you know, it's not something that I'm like turning up and enjoying listening to my music with. But if you need something to drown out the NVH, it'll do it for you just fine. As we cruise this last little section here into downtown, there's one last elephant in the room that I want to get out of the way, and that is efficiency. Now, normally, this BMW B58 is an incredibly efficient engine. In fact, we've seen numbers close to 40 mpg, maybe even in excess, back when I was doing the daily motor fuel economy tests in BMW X3 M40i and M240i and other vehicles with this engine. Well, not necessarily the case, or not at all the case here with the Ineos Grenadier, as this is rated across the board, city, highway, and combined, at, wait for it, 15 mpg, 15. The only thing that makes this a little bit easier to swallow is that this version of the B58, the tune that they have on this, means it's not required to run on 93 octanes. You can run this on regular fuel. It saves you a little bit of money at the pump, though, these days. I mean, what sort of difference does it make? You're paying over $5 a gallon anyway. So we're actually not going to end this in the parking structure today. And in fact, we're going to have a little bit of a hard time even getting anywhere because so many streets are closed. But I do just want to do a little bit of city driving with this and show off what it's like in some tighter driving scenarios. I know we already kind of saw it in the parking lot, but Hey, you know, I know a number of people that live in downtown Chicago that would purchase this vehicle just for the aesthetic. So we got to find out if it's usable in a city. What on earth? The apocalypse is happening. Luckily, actually, we're in a proper apocalypse vehicle. I mean, I don't think you could be any better prepared for an apocalypse. Oh dear, why is that siren going off? It's not Saturday. Is there a tornado? Anyway, though, apocalypse aside, you know, we do sort of have post-apocalyptic roads here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and this takes care of them no problem. You know, this is sort of the biggest appeal to daily driving a vehicle like this, is that you can just sort of run anything over, and it doesn't matter. You never have to look at what's on the road in front of you. You've got the ground clearance, you've got the sidewall. It just bulldozes everything. But the Grenadier does this in a very comfortable manner, and it does it in a very normal manner. And I think that's kind of the biggest compliment that I can pay this Ineos Grenadier, is how genuinely on par this feels to everything that it competes with. For being a first-time car maker, you know, obviously Ineos, they've been around doing their chemical thing for quite a while. But for this being their first shot at a car, this feels unbelievably mass-produced. You know, obviously it's got its special little touches here and there, and honking at people, but it just feels so normal. Oh, dearie me. The fire hydrant. Is there an apocalypse happening today? This poor guy is getting just completely soaked by the fire hydrant right now. Oh my goodness me. And the bus, what's the bus gonna do? Is he gonna drive through there? It's not even rattling over bumps. I mean, the interior feels seriously well put together in this car. I mean, obviously this is built in like a very legit factory in France by legit robots that have been modified to do the Grenadier. God, imagine going from a smart car to this thing. It just feels very properly tested, and it doesn't feel odd. Like, I don't feel like I'm driving something that was built in a shed. It feels like a legit car that's legitly made for the 2026 model year. I think tweaking the steering in this really made this sort of slot into this normalcy. That's a good thing. You know, I'm not saying this is normal in the way that it's boring, because it's most certainly not boring at all. It just works for me as a very cool daily driver. Like, it just does all the cool stuff. Now, granted, it is quite inefficient and it doesn't have proxy key. And, you know, some of the things in here, yes, they're hard plastic, but it's purpose-built. It has to be dual function. You have to be able to wade all of the water in the world and get this thing completely soaked and just be able to hose it out. The fact that it's able to do that and still not sacrifice comfort, it's just a win in my book for the Ineos Grenadier. The roofline sometimes is awkward, but you are able to use the Safari windows to increase your visibility. We'll open one right now, actually, which they're a bit hard to open when you're on the move because you've got the wind resistance, but that's now open. I like it, you know, like that's another appeal of daily drivers like this, is you have this in the driveway and you look forward to going and driving it. You know, comparing this to something like just a very standard Range Rover, like that Range Rover Sport over there. I'm sure it's more expensive than this, yes. But even something that's around 90 grand, you know, that's just sort of a jelly bean mold SUV. You don't look forward to going and driving that unless it's some sort of hot AMG variant or M variant or something. This is not made to go fast, but it is made to be fun in a different way. And it's just it's so much more usable and livable than I ever expected. Don't be scared. If you've been considering an Ineos Grenadier, just know that it is a genuine option and it's gonna be a really fun daily driver for you, or weekend trail toy. You know, it could really do anything you want it to do. So that's gonna do it for me. I'm gonna keep driving this around because I'm very excited about doing so. And you get the cool boost noises if you have the Safari window open. All right, let's park this up here and we'll give you one last look at it. Also like those interior door handles. They're in a good position. Only thing I will say, these steps, they're very skinny. You do have to sort of pay attention if you're going to use them and step on them. But there you go. That's been a little abbreviated day in the life with the Ineos Grenadier. Let me know if you guys have any questions, if I left anything out on this. But man, has this been cool to live with for the past few days. And, well, I look forward to living with another one. Maybe we'll do the truck version next. Let me know what you guys think if you want more Ineos content. But that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.